What's going on, guys? It's David from AquaOtter, and welcome back to another One Piece chapter review. This week we're reviewing chapter 1008, Leader of the Atamayama Thieves Brigade, Ashura Doji. This chapter is super hype. So much stuff happens. It's like everything that we were waiting on. Oda was just like boom, 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 drop, drop, drop. Here's everything. And I mean, I guess it's as good a time as any. You know, we just came back from that 2-week break. So, yeah, really exciting chapter. We're going to get right into it. The cover page this week is another fan request. I'm really starting to wonder when we're going to get another cover serial. I feel like maybe a few more chapters. I can't remember when the last one stopped, but I am really looking forward to when we get into the cover serials again. But this one is a reader request. It's Robin giving a horse who really wishes to fly wings. So it's just this black horse with the big robin wings yeah. Pretty decent piece of art. There's something I'm actually going to circle back around to in the cover page when we get to a reveal that happens later in this chapter. But with that being said, we're jumping right into the actual chapter at hand. We are right back in the treasure repository with the samurai. We're picking up from the big reveal of chapter 1007, which was that Kozuki Odin is alive. And now we're kind of seeing how the samurai are responding to all of it just from right at the end of that chapter. And so we start with Odin, and he's laughing, you know, saying, I don't blame you all for being surprised. It's been years, you know, but he says, I've come to the future using Toki's powers. It's a long story, but, you know, there will be time for it later. But right now, we have to get up to that rooftop. We have to go finish this fight that we started all these years ago. We got to go kill Kaido. And we see Kinemon's reaction. We see Nekomamushi's reaction to it, Kiku's reaction to it. All the samurai, we actually get their reactions to it over this. And, but so Inuarashi is like, yes, of course, like, let's go kill Kaido. And Kawamatsu is like, we'll find you, we'll join you. Izo, this is actually Izo's first time in a long time seeing Odin. So, you know, there's all this complicated emotion. Denjiro is there, he's got his head in his hands, he's crying. But not all of the samurai are falling hook, line, and sinker for it. Because the next thing, there are two people that we don't get to actually see their reactions. And that's because the next part is we actually have Ashura Doji saying, guys, what are we doing here? Like, not so fast, nobody move. This is clearly, obviously a fake. We saw Odin die. And everyone's confused, and Kinemon's like, what do you mean, Ashura? He's right there, right before our eyes. Of course it's Odin. Like, this is Odin. What are you talking about? And Raizo, as well, also shouts out and is like, Kinemon, remember what Lady Toki said. And there's this little flashback in Kinemon's head to that moment where Toki says, mankind cannot return to the past. And Raizo keeps following this up by saying, you know, Lady Toki had the power to send people to the future, but Lord Odin, he died. He died in that pot of oil. We all saw him. He boiled in that pot of oil. Kaido put a bullet through his head. That truth will never change. No matter what happens, Kaido killed Odin. Odin is dead. And you see Odin at this point, he's got his jolly expression is gone, just completely stone-faced. He actually starts pulling out one of his katanas, and Kinemon is like, no, like, I can't believe this. And Ashura just yells at him and is like, I know how you feel. Like, I want him to be alive, but you have to open your eyes. And he runs forward, he punches Kinemon, and Ashura's got his sword out, and he whips around and slices Odin's cheek, and just a huge gash in Odin's cheek. And he points out, he's like, see, look there, no blood. It's not Odin. And everyone is surprised at this, obviously. But then Kiku calls out, because right at the moment after he says this, Ashura gets stabbed right through by Odin. Just Odin's katana goes right through Ashura's body. And Ashura is like, well, there we go. That makes it clear. And you get this close-up of Ashura Doji's face. He's got tears welling up in his eyes. And he's like, we all feel the same. We all wanted it to be him, but it's not. It's not him. We all wanted it to be him. And I super love this moment, because so I'm not going to talk about like what it is, because it does come up. We're getting to it. I just want to specifically talk about this moment with Ashura Doji and the tears in his eyes, because the thing is, Ashura, more than anybody, has this regret, and we know this about his character. All of the vassals, they feel regret over not being able to save Odin and the fact that Odin is dead. But this moment specifically, like, for him, it must have taken so much for him to look past what was right in front of him, because he loved Odin, he misses Odin, he wants it more than anything to be Odin. but he knows the sad reality is that he's spent the last 20 years. Ashura isn't one of the vassals that got sent forward in time. Ashura has spent the last 20 years lamenting the fact that Odin is dead. So as much as he wishes that this could be Odin, it's not. And so at this point, everyone is kind of now reacting to the fact that this is clearly not Odin. Kawamatsu says, what a devious trick. Who could that have been? Nekomamushi is like yelling out for Ashura, trying to make sure it's okay. Like, who could this be? And then they say, this is Odin, though. His presence, his mannerisms, everything about the person who is standing in front of us, this is Kozuki Odin. So that means that the only person who could accurately recreate it would have had to be one of us. And so Denjiro yells out, so it's you, Kanjuro. Kanjuro's still alive. This is honestly probably the best case scenario. Now, in my last review for chapter 1007, I didn't put in any kind of like theories on how I felt about Odin being alive. I kind of said that I kind of don't hope that he's alive, but at the same time, I don't really think I'd have a problem with it. I'm very glad that it's not actually Odin, because it does leave, and especially we'll get into this later in the chapter, there's so much that this chapter has opened up for what's going to happen later in this arc. So I am glad that it's not actually Odin. I feel like it makes the most sense to be Kanjuro. I know so many people thought it was Onimaru, the little like transforming fox thing from like earlier in Act 2, the one who was guarding Ringo and was preventing Zoro from getting Shusui back. But I do like that it's Kanjuro, because there is unresolved things here with Kanjuro, and I'll get into in my like predictions for what's going to happen in the next couple chapters. I'll get into what I think this means now for the story that Kanjuro is alive. But yeah, so they call out, they're like, oh, so it's you, Kanjuro. And Odin starts laughing, but it's no longer Odin's laugh, it's now Kanjuro's laugh. And he's like, no, I am Odin, don't be stupid, I am Odin. And Kiku then falls down to Ashura on the floor, and is like, I'm so sorry, like, this is my fault, I failed to strike him down. And Ashura is like, it's okay, I completely understand, because even after everything that he did, even knowing that he betrayed us, he was our friend. Like, I cannot blame you for not being able to finish him off. And he says, this battle is just getting harder and harder by the minute. And everyone's like, this is only a painting. Clearly, this is only a painting, Kanjuro. Where is your real body? And Kanjuro states that, like, controlling it remotely, it's very, very difficult for him. And everyone's like, oh, you're controlling it remotely? He's like, I'm deeply wounded, but it doesn't matter, because, I'm going to die in this battle, but I'm going to go out having pierced the very heart of the Kozuki clan as Kurozumi Kanjuro. And then we actually, like, see him, he's walking, and he's got, like, blood kind of, like, coming out of his mouth. Like, he is very injured. We don't get to see his face or anything, but they all understand what this means. It means that Kanjuro is going after Momonosuke. And so Denjiro is like, Momonosuke's in danger. And Kawamatsu remembers the announcement from the Marys that he's like, oh yes, I heard something. I heard that Lord Momo was with a Kunoichi. And everyone's like, oh, well, okay, so he's still with Shinobu, which means that we can send her a message. And at this point, as they're trying to wrap their head around what's going on, Odin, like, moves his kimono, and to reveal that he's, like, absolutely strapped with dynamite. He's going full Pedro here from the end of Whole Cake. And he lights up the dynamite, and Ashura Doji and Denjiro both notice this. And Denjiro pulls out his sword, because after the dynamite has been lit, Odin actually comes after the vassals again with his katana, and Denjiro manages to fight him off. But then Ashura Doji just completely, like, basically tackles into Odin, grabs him and pushes him away from everybody and says, you all need to get out of here. Go and stop Kanjuro. Like, you need to save Momonosuke. I will stay back and I will take care of this. And Denjiro cries out for him, thank you so much, Ashura. And they all start running. And Odin is, like, struggling because Ashura Doji just kind of has him in this, like, bear hug. He's like, get off of me, get off of me. And Ashura just yells out, never defile Kozuki Odin again. And then the dynamite explodes. Huge explosion, like half-page panel of just the explosion. And it knocks the scabbards, sends all the scabbards flying, and as they're recovering, Kinemon looks up and looks, and all you see is, and I want to talk about this. I'm going to say what you see, and then I'm going to go into what we're talking about. But all you see is the blackened body of Ashura Doji and his katana sticking up out of the ground. And Kiku has this look on her face. She's starting to well up tears. Raizo has this like anger on his face, and Kinemon just gets this dead, like, no more games with Kinemon. He is pissed, and this look on his face is like it's just twisted, like he's about to go full Dendro anger face transformation with how angry the look on his face is, and he's just screaming, yelling out Kandro, and he whips out his katanas and he is running to go and find him. But I want to, before we move on to what happens next, I want to talk about what it means for Ashura Doji here, because I don't know, because you know, if you've read One Piece for a while, you know that Oda doesn't really like to kill off characters. There have been a few exceptions, obviously, but, you know, in the case of, like, with Alabasta, with Pell, how he ended up being alive, and then, you know, with, more recently, Whole Cake Island, we found out that Pound was still alive, though it was very clear at the end that he was dead, or had been killed, but Oda likes to do a lot of these things where he doesn't actually end up killing off characters. So what does this mean for Ashura Doji? Is Ashura Doji dead? I am hoping yes. But also, as I say with most of the things that Oda does, if he's not dead, I'm not going to be super upset about it. But I do think that what with the actual chapter title being named after Ashura Doji, you know, leader, head of the Thieves Brigade, the Atamayama Thieves Brigade, Ashura Doji, I do think that this is actually meaning that he is dead. And one of the reasons why I think that he is actually dead is because one of the things we do know about Ashura Doji's character is there was that line back in Act 2 that he said when they were trying to recruit him to go, you know, take part in the raid that is happening right now, where he flat out said that he lost his chance for a meaningful death 20 years ago, meaning he did not die in any meaningful way. To him, the most meaningful way would have been dying for Odin so that, you know, Wano would have been saved. And he couldn't die. He couldn't die back then. He was saved. And he then had to live the last 20 years with all of this regret and this pain and this sorrow and not being able to save his allies, to be able to save Odin, to be able to save his country. And this would give him a chance for a honorable death. And honestly, I don't want to say that this is the tragedy, that Ashura dying is the tragedy, but I do think that we could afford to lose a few of the scabbards, and that could be a decent tragedy to wrap up Act 3. If we're, of course, following the 5-act structure, which I've already said multiple times, I do believe we're following the 5-act structure. But, so yeah, moving on. The next panel we actually do get to see, or the next page we actually do get to see Kandro. It goes from Kinemon screaming and yelling, calling out for Kandro, and then we get to see him running, and he is basically reiterating his plan. Become Kozuki, bring down Kozuki. This is the greatest final act, my entire life, a beautiful and poignant drama. So he is completely prepared to die, but he is going to take down the Kozuki clan, and that is his whole goal. And unfortunately, he might get a little bit closer to the goal, because as we cut back now to the samurai, another huge obstacle has stepped up in their way, that being Big Boy Jack. Jack the Mammoth, Jack the Drought, he is here, he's full mammoth form up, and he is here to wreck their days. And so he's wheezing, he's hacking, everyone's reacting to the fact that he's here. He's like, man, this took way longer for me to get here than I anticipated. He's got the battered bodies of a bunch of minks at his feet, and he's like, I had to break through all of these people in order to get here. You know, they were so desperate to protect their kings, and you get to see Nekomamushi reacting to this, and then you see Inuarashi. He just says, Cat, Raizo, you guys go on ahead. I will stay here. I'm the one who will fight Jack. And Jack, I love this whole interaction, this next like few panels, but this whole scene here, I just want to preface as I'm talking about it. Holy shit. I much prefer, as I think most of the community does, Nekomamushi to Inuarashi in terms of the two kings. But damn, Inuarashi is pulling out some badass stuff here. So Jack says, oh, you intend to fight me on your own. You intend to stop me on your own, King of the Day. And Inuarashi is like, well, we're both injured, so it seems pretty fair, you know? And they, all the scabbards start running away. All the samurai, they start running away. And Inuarashi just says, I don't choose this fight to settle scores of the past. I choose it to keep you occupied so that you cannot create any new victims, Jack. Go ahead, run forward, my friends, and protect Lord Momonosuke. And Jack looks at Inu and he says, you aren't going to see any moons down here. And Inu just with that clap back, nor is there any poisonous gas, so we'll both have to make do. And then that's the end of the samurai. But we do get to cut away because, as I said at the beginning here, drop after drop after drop. So we get to see that the castle is now on fire. People are reacting. Oh my God, there's a fire in the castle. We have to douse it. And then you see from the shadows an eye, big mouth, buck tooth. He says, your mistake was betraying me, Kaido. I'll burn it all down. Kurozumi Orochi, he's alive. I'm not shocked about it, but apparently a lot of people didn't seem to see this coming. And I want to say, we get a lot of people who are dead in this chapter being actually alive. Kandro was supposed to be dead. Everyone was like, oh, what a great way for Kandro to go out, because the most insulting thing for an actor would be to die off screen. So he died off screen. We get to see Orochi being beheaded and he's still alive. I love this, man, because it totally makes sense. It makes sense why all of them would be alive. And we'll talk about that. I want to go into the recap here at the end. And I want to specifically talk about that in my recap about, death and these characters coming back to life. But anyway, Orochi is setting fire to the castle. I'll burn it all down. You'll all die in here. There's nowhere for you to run. We're up in the sky. And you get to see Fukurokuju. He's in the background as people are noticing, the Beast Pirates are noticing that Orochi is alive. He's just striking them down. And he's like, the last mistake you will ever make was defying me, Kaido. I will slaughter every last one of you. And man, I love that. We end up transitioning here over to Team Momo with, Momo, Yamato, and Shinobu. But I'm so excited that Orochi is still alive because honestly, and I will talk about this in my wrap-up, this means so much for the chapter. It means so much for the actual story of the Kozuki clan. And once again, I will delve into that later in my wrap-up because I have predictions as to what him being alive means. But going back to Team Momo now. So Momo is no longer in his dragon form. He's back down into human form. And Yamato has tucked him back into their clothing. And they're saying, now, listen, will you just relax and stay put in there? And Momo's apologizing, saying, like, listen, I'm sorry. I'm much better at controlling it than I used to be. Like, when I first met Luffy's crew all the way back in Punk Hazard, that's where we met him. We learned that Momo could turn into this dragon. He says, when I first met Luffy's crew, I turned into a dragon whenever I was surprised or sad. But now, like, I can sort of control it a little bit better. And Yamato says, that transformation, it really startled me. I wonder if it works like my father's does, which opening the door to one of my theories that Yamato is going to teach Momo how to use some of Kaido's powers, and that Momo is going to actually be able to stop the Flower Capital from or Onigashima from falling onto the Flower Capital. But so Momo continues saying, like, oh man, if only I could turn into a monster like Kaido, I'd be such a help to everyone. But right now I'm just like a burden. Going back to how he was acting in the last chapter, how he just feels like he's such a burden to the entire raid that everyone is spending so much time protecting him. And Yamato's like, speaking of which, I hope that Luffy's all right. I also want to fight Kaido. Since I'm Odin, I want to go and fight Kaido. And Momonosuke is like, Luffy's greatly weakened, but somehow he's still fine. And Shinobu is like, oh, well, that's a relief. And wait a second, hold on. How do you know that, Momonosuke? Like, how can you tell that he's fine? Which, this is super cool to me because I think that by the end of this arc, the whole voice of all things, a lot of people are saying that this is observation hockey. I don't think it's observation hockey, but only because there are two things that I think it will be more. The thing that I think is most likely is that it's to do with the voice of all things, how both, it's already been established that Momonosuke and Luffy have the voice of all things, so maybe they have this connection because of that. But I've also seen people theorizing that it's because Momo is linked to Kaido, so whatever Kaido is experiencing, Momo has some kind of awareness of. I don't know if that's true though, but I digress. Moving into the last couple pages of the chapter, Finally, we are back on the rooftop. We're back up on the top of the roof, and we start immediately with Luffy just being thrown across the roof. He smashes into a bunch of boulders, and everyone is like, how are we supposed to hurt them? Like, how are we supposed to beat them? Because it feels like our attacks are doing absolutely nothing. And Luffy just stands up and is like, no, they're absolutely working. Like, there's no way that all of these attacks are having absolutely no effect on them. Like, they are just as human as we are. And he goes to launch another attack, but then gets just pretty much backhanded again. And this is where we get the final 2 pages of the chapter. I have to talk about them at the same time because the one page it's one of those like 3/4 page spreads that Oda does. So we get on the one side of the page, Luffy just got back slapped. Zoro is basically like, listen, will you start thinking before you just launch in headstrong and attacking? And Killer is like looking at, across the battlefield, and he's like, I'm amazed that you can actually call them the same species as us. And Luffy like hops up very adamant again, just absolutely, he's just taking a beating clearly in this fight, but he's just bouncing right back. And he hops up and is like, what are you trying to say? Like, that you're just up here expecting us to lose? And Zoro is yelling at him like, no, listen, we're thinking of how to win. And Law says, listen, we should separate them, and Zoro agrees. And then Kid has this amazing line which bleeds over into the into the 3/4 page spread, where Kid says, with the two of them standing side by side, and then we bleed into the 3/4 page spread where we get to see Big Mom in her full power. She's got Napoleon, the full sword is out, Zeus is in full lightning cloud mode, Prometheus is just absolutely ablaze, there's fire everywhere, and we get to see Kaido. Finally we get to see Kaido's hybrid form, which I will say, when I read this at first, I was not super hype about it. It has definitely grown on me. I'll talk about Kaido's hybrid form because I want to finish talking about what's happening here on this last page. But so, Kid says, as I said, with the two of them standing side by side, and then onto the 3/4 page spread with Kaido and Big Mom, it looks just like we're in hell. And then Luffy, big smile on his face. That suits me just fine. I've been to hell and back plenty of times. It's my home territory. And then Kaido looking right back at him, equally big smile, saying, that's it, Straw Hat. That light, it just never leaves your eyes, does it? And man, whoa, what a chapter. So let's talk about Kaido's hybrid form. So at first I didn't like it. I thought it was pretty overwhelming. I think the reason that it felt underwhelming to me is because we got that silhouette. I feel like if it wasn't silhouetted, and like, because of the silhouette, it allowed my mind to run and be like, oh my god, like, what is this gonna look like? Like, not only is this a huge moment because it's Kaido, so Kaido's hybrid form, it's also the first time that we would see a hybrid form for a mythical Zoan. So I kind of let my mind wander, but honestly, I don't know what I expected, because it looks pretty similar to the way that Lucci's hybrid form looked all the way back in Eni's lobby. He looks just like Kaido, except different. I'm sure with the coloring, I can't remember if I can find it when I'm doing editing. I'll put it right up here. There is this Twitter account that like all of the One Piece YouTubers that I follow were liking this guy's coloring of this final page. And the coloring actually does so much to it, and I recommend, like I said, if I find it, it'll be right up here. I'll put the person's at. But if you can go and find it, it definitely did wonders for me and how I felt about it. Because it is just Kaido. Like, his tattoos are more scaly. He's got scales all over his face. He's got, I mean, he normally has the 2 horns, but he's got 2 more horns up here. He's got a tail, and, you know, he just looks like a dragon that fused with a human a little bit. So, but it looks so badass. I'm so excited for this fight, and just to continue seeing him up here. Like, I hope, honestly, I don't know if we're gonna stay on the rooftop next time. I'll get, you know, I actually think we might be beginning to transition into possibly the end of Act 3. I don't want to keep saying that, even though I'm pretty sure I've said it in every single one of my chapter reviews that I think we're going into the end of Act 3. But if we're not going into the end of Act 3, we're definitely getting a Kaido flashback soon, because it just kind of feels appropriate, like, that we're going to be moving into that. But, yeah, holy crap, what a chapter. Like, so there were fire moments in this chapter, like, absolutely, like, one after another. Ashura Doji's huge moment, his sacrifice to help the scabbards move forward, that whole moment with Jack and Inuarashi, like, that line between the two of them, where he is like, there's not going to be any moon up here, and he's like, that's fine, there's no gas, like, the only reason that you beat me was because of the gas, and the only reason that I beat you last time was because we went Sulong and we looked at the moon. But, you know, we're on even footing here. No cheap tricks, just me and you. So badass. Like, honestly, still like Nekomamashi better, but Inuarashi, goddamn. And then the whole moment with Orochi being back, like, oh my god, Orochi is back. Like, I totally saw it coming, but, like, I'm so happy that I was right. And then there's the moment with Momo. Like, what does it mean that Momo can feel Kaido, or can feel Luffy and feel how Luffy is doing? And then Yamato now saying that they want to get involved up on the roof, and then the Kaido hybrid form at the end, and we're finally back on the rooftop. And oh my god, so good. This is definitely the most hype of all the chapters that I've reviewed so far. It might be the best chapter of 2021 so far, which I know is not really that high a bar. There's been, 9? But anyway, oh god, so cool. Predictions for the future. I wanted to talk about this because I wanted to talk about the death aspect. So anyone who is upset about Orochi being alive, even though we saw him being beheaded, like, honestly, get over that, because, so here's the thing. We had 2 characters basically come back from the dead in this chapter. We had Kanjuro, who we saw die, but it happened off screen. And then we have Orochi, who we definitely saw die. We saw his head get completely lopped off, but there is precedent for both of these characters being back. As Doji said, Kiku couldn't finish the job. Like, no matter what, Kanjuro was a vassal. He was one of them. He was their friend. So it's going to be difficult for any of them to take him down, but not anymore. And why not anymore? Because Kinemon versus Kanjuro is happening. It has to happen. Kinemon is going to ruin Kanjuro's day, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait to read it. And then with Orochi, this is great because there's already story precedent. Oda went out of his way to show us that Orochi has a devil fruit that can basically make him not immune to death, but can counteract the one specific way that he was killed, which was beheading, because he has multiple heads. The Yamato no Orochi fruit. He can transform into a mythical snake with multiple heads. So when Kaido cuts off his head, of course he's still alive. And the groundwork has been being laid for so long now, because, like, we saw that Fukurokuju knew that something was happening. So he went off to deal with something. He went off to deal with Orochi still being alive. And it's actually better, and I guarantee you it is better for Orochi to be alive, because the whole point of Wano, I know that a lot of the focus is on Kaido, because Kaido needs to go down here, but the whole plot line, the whole storyline with Orochi is this whole thing with the Kurozumis versus the Kozuki clan, and we don't know who it was that tended to the scabbards. We know it definitely was not Kanjuro, because if Kanjuro went in and healed them up, why would he be trying to kill them now? So I think that I was wrong. I don't think that the person who was healing them was Toki. I think that the person who was healing them was Hiyori, which is setting us up for Hiyori, because there's also storyline precedent for this. Hiyori is going to end up being the one to take down and kill Orochi, because Hiyori was Komurasaki in the beginning. That was her cover, was she was the courtesan Komurasaki, and Orochi basically killed Komurasaki. So now Hiyori is going to get her revenge, not just for her family, but for him basically killing her at the beginning of the arc. And it's like, it's so poetic now that finally Orochi is going to be taken down. And I really, really, truly believe if it's not Hiyori, Momonosuke is going to be the one to take down Orochi, because a Kozuki needs to kill Orochi. It has to be, because the story needs to be wrapped up that way. And then, yeah, so this whole Inu versus Jack fight, I really hope that's not off-screened. Kinemon is definitely going to fight Kandro. Like, he has to at this point. He has to take him down. Just, holy crap, there's so much going on now, and I'm so excited for the next couple chapters, because I really, really do think that we are now at a point where, and I've said this a million times before, we're at a point now where the pot is bubbling over for Act 3 to end, and the Flower Capital has to go down. I still don't think the Flower Capital is going to land. I think that that's what Momo's big thing is going to be, is because Momo has Kaido's powers, so Momo's going to be able to save the Onigashima from crashing down on the Flower Capital. But we need that plotline resolved, and then we now need to have this. We definitely need a Kaido flashback before this arc is over. If Wano ends and we don't get a Kaido flashback, like, I don't know what we're doing here. But yeah, holy crap. 10 out of 10 arc, 15 out of 10 chapter, honestly. Like, Wano is so good, and I know that, like, so many people are of that same opinion, and so many people are like, it really needs to end a certain way, and if it doesn't end a certain way, then this 10 out of 10 arc is going to be worse than I think it is. But I wholeheartedly disagree. Wano has to be one of my favorite arcs in the entire series thus far. Like, I cannot even believe how every chapter it keeps one-upping itself. But yeah, those have been my thoughts. Those have been my theories. Those have been my predictions. Thank you so much. Holy crap, go read this chapter. Everybody who's watching this, because you are my friend, and you're watching it just because you know me in real life, read One Piece. Read One Piece for this moment. Just go do it. I have all of the volumes. I'll lend them to you. But yeah, if you are not one of my real life friends, still go read the chapter. It's good. And let me know in the comments what you think. Thank you so much. Please like and subscribe for more. I cannot wait. The next chapter comes out on Sunday. Again, there's no break, so we're getting straight back into the thick of things. I want to take this moment right at the end to tell you guys all something. For anyone who hasn't seen the things that have been going on the channel, I have actually started reviewing a second series on the channel. I'm now reviewing My Hero Academia as well as One Piece. I'm also going to be trying to put those out as the chapters come out weekly or bi-weekly or whenever, but my focus is going to be primarily on the One Piece stuff. But please, if you like My Hero Academia, go and check those out. And also, I mentioned in my first My Hero chapter review, and also it was mentioned on my Twitter and on our Facebook. So if you do not follow me on those social medias, those are linked in the description. Definitely go follow them for any news whenever something like this happens. But I'm going to mention it here as well. I have launched a podcast. It is available on Spotify. It's called First Time for Anything, and the premise of the podcast is that I am taking things that I have never done before, that people that I know absolutely love and are passionate about. It's a idea that kind of spawned from these chapter reviews, because I started doing these chapter reviews, as I've said before, because I have not many people in my life who are manga readers or who like One Piece. So I wanted an outlet to talk about something I was really passionate about. So I launched this podcast, First Time for Anything, as a way to let people I know talk about things that they're passionate about, and then I would get to share in that with them. So I worked really hard to get the first episode out. The first episode, I sit down with my friend and we talk about her favorite album of all time, Raise the Dead by Phantom Planet. It turned out really well. I was really, really proud of the way the episode shaked up, and that is linked in the description as well. So go down into the description, check out the podcast on Spotify, make sure you follow me on Twitter, and while you're down there, like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. God, this chapter, so good. Until next week, I will see you guys in 1009.